Good evening and welcome to Northbeat. I'm Shannon Scott. The family of a Coville Lake NWT man says he was forcefully removed from Stanton Territorial Hospital last Tuesday, even though he was suffering in pain. It turns out he had a serious infection. And when he went back days later, they had to amputate his leg. Robert Holden reports.
James Cochon appears in a photo circulating online. In it, the 47-year-old is lying on the floor of the Stanton Hospital. A caption describes him crying for help due to severe leg pain before being removed by hospital security. His brother Charles Cochon says he was protesting after the doctor told him he could go home. Yellowknife RCMP told me they were indeed called to the hospital for this incident. Charles Cochon says his brother avoided the hospital for 4 days afterwards.
He was suffering, for calling me for painkillers, and my sisters they bring him painkillers because they get so bad, so he was in so much pain.
Cochon says when his brother finally returned to Stanton, he was told he had a flesh-eating bacterial infection and his leg was amputated later that day.
It's a terrible disease to get.
Dr. Anna Banerjee is an infectious disease doctor. She says it's likely necrotizing fasciitis and it can be difficult to detect. If left undetected, tissue damage can occur rapidly.
And one of the keys are pain out of proportion to symptoms. You might see someone, their arm may not look red, it may be swollen, but you may go just very lightly touch it and they're in excruciating pain.
His sister Trudy Cochon is a nurse in Colville Lake. She says it's yet another example of Indigenous people facing substandard health care. James Cochon remains in the hospital battling the infection. NWT Health and Social Services has declined to comment. Robert Holden, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Anti-abortionists organized a march through downtown Whitehorse today. To meet them, Yukoners who say people have the right to choose. Asad Shusti has the details.
As you can see behind me, about 100 people are gathered here to protest or protect abortion rights. About 30 people against abortion have gathered to espouse those views. They call the demonstration Walk for Life. Across the street, residents are speaking out against that, calling it untimely. Some have told me this is a conversation that we don't have room or time for in 2024 anymore. So far, the demonstrations have been peaceful as they begin their walk around downtown Whitehorse. Asad Chishti, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Well, Health Canada has modified screening rules for sperm donors, meaning more gay and bisexual men can now make donations, but not all of them. And as Shoshana Reed tells us, some advocates say these changes aren't enough.
At this fertility clinic lies hope for people wanting to start a family. Most of the sperm here comes from the U.S., but that could change after Health Canada revised its policy.
It increases the pool of potential sperm donors in Canada for our patients.
For decades, there was a total ban on gay and bisexual men from donating to sperm banks. In 2020, restrictions eased, barring men who had sex with men within the past 3 months. Now, egg and sperm donors will have to meet gender-neutral screening criteria, like this one. A person who has had anal sex with a new sexual partner in the preceding 3 months would not qualify. The change follows an end to the ban on blood donations from men who have sex with men.
It reduces the stigma that has been present for many years against gay and bisexual men being able to participate in this process.
The stigma is
But some argue the new screening criteria still excludes.
It opened up to a few more people, but the discrimination is still there. I donated for
Aziz M., whose full name is protected under a court order, filed a case in 2023 against the federal government over its donor policy. He says the changes are a step in the right direction, but doesn't go far enough.
The questions will continue to exclude gay and bisexual men who engage in anal sex.
Health Canada says its revision is based on scientific evidence, including the association between HIV and certain high-risk behaviors.
Receptive anal intercourse particularly has been identified as a risk factor for transmission of many sexually transmitted infections.
Still, experts say rigorous safety protocols ensure donor samples are safe.
Every single sample will be quarantined and stored for 6 months in liquid nitrogen, and this donor has to come back in 3 months to be retested.
We're moving in the right direction.
As for Aziz, he plans to continue his legal fight to ensure more people can help others start a family. Tashana Reid, CBC News, Toronto.
The Northern Premiers Forum has wrapped up in Pond Inlet, and today the three leaders faced questions from the media in Iqaluit. Among the topics discussed, Arctic sovereignty. Well, this comes after those three federal cabinet ministers were in Iqaluit to talk about the same thing. Nunavut Premier PJ Akiaguk spoke about the local volunteers the Canadian Rangers need and what his territory is looking for when it comes to funding and resources.
We know the importance of that program and the important role they play in terms of that. We have always been advocating for proper equipment and services provided to the Rangers that really provide that critical service. We were very fortunate when we were with Minister Blair to meet with the Rangers here locally, with Dinos, Gitalu, among many, including His Worship, who has been with the Rangers for many, many years. So I think it's so important to ensure that those voices are heard and that they're equipped accordingly.
Another topic discussed was emergency preparedness in light of last year's wildfires in the Northwest Territories. NWT Premier R.J. Simpson talked about the reviews currently underway, and those reviews are looking at how firefighters and the government responded to the crisis. Now, no NWT community was hit harder by the 2023 wildfires than Enterprise. It was all but lost. Many of its residents still aren't home, but there is work being done to bring the community back. CBC Northbeat host Megan Roberts visited Enterprise today. Here's what she found.
So the landscape of Enterprise has really changed. Once again, you can kind of see around me how much has been cleared away. There's still a little bit of debris, but if you look, you can see all of the different stumps. So all the trees that used to be here that were burnt, along with some of the valuables and people's livelihoods that were burnt here as well. There's a big cleanup effort underway as people are getting ready to try to rebuild their properties. And that's what's going on over here. If you look behind me, you can see some new foundations, some new concrete being laid, which is really exciting for a community that lost so much. Almost 90% of this community was lost in the 2023 wildfire season. Now, we spoke to somebody who lost their home last year, and she took us around her property, and she also took us around her mother's property. It was kind of two sides of one coin of what's going on in Enterprise right now. Her property had been cleared out. There was kind of a big hole where the house used to be, though there were a few little surviving things that were on the property still, including a trampoline that had made it through the wildfires. Her mother's property, sadly, also destroyed, and that property had not been cleared out yet. You could still see the burnt out cars. You could still see debris littered across. The trees hadn't been completely cleared yet. So they kind of represent what's going on in Enterprise right now. There are still some of those scenes that we saw from last year's wildfires. And then there's progress like you're seeing around me. So these are the kinds of things that the community members, community leaders are doing right now to help Enterprise rebuild and move forward into this year. Megan Roberts, CBC News, Enterprise.
Well, federal officials say Canada's north and the western provinces could see above average wildfire risk by next month. Minister Harjit Sajjan says severe weather is not just a threat to communities, they're also costly.
Climate-related impacts are now costing average Canadian households $720 per year today, and if left unchecked, it could increase to approximately $2,000 per year by 2050.
There are at least 87 active wildfires burning in the country, 6 of them out of control. Most of the active wildfires are in Alberta, BC, and Manitoba. 3 are in the NWT. Well, in Yellowknife Bay, some of the iconic houseboats are grounded, and a multi-year drought is to blame. Normally, the houseboats float as ice melts in the spring, But water levels on Great Slave Lake are at an all-time low for this time of year. One owner who spoke to CBC says his houseboat is still floating, but he's seeing others propped up on land where water used to be.
Because where I am, it's still like pretty deep. Normally, it would be somewhere like 8 feet, maybe 9 feet deep. So right now, it looks like we're like 2 or 3 feet lower than usual, which is so I still have plenty of space. I'm not anywhere near the bottom where because I'm a little bit most of the islands most of the houseboats are like along the shore of the island or along the shore of land. So it is affecting them. So my neighbors, for example, yeah, there's at least 2 or 3 right now I can think of the top of my head who are normally would be floating but are sitting on the floor, the lake bed.
Rehak says he's waiting to see what will happen with the water levels. He's hopeful they'll rise when all of the ice starts to melt. Well, there's been a surprising change in the waters off of Nova Scotia. The temperature has gone down. The CBC's Paul Wither reports on the findings and what scientists believe may be happening.
Twice a year, Canadian scientists measure physical, chemical, and biological conditions on the East Coast. This is the spring survey underway last month on the Scotian Shelf. For the last decade, ocean temperatures in the Atlantic have gone in one direction, up. The latest survey, though, shows the ocean cooling.
We did see a continuation of the trend that we observed in 2023, which was the temperatures are actually returning to normal or even below normal conditions in some areas.
It's getting cooler.
It's getting cooler.
The reversal has scientists wondering if this is the beginning of a return to norms or a blip.
I guess what remains unknown is whether this is a longer-term trend or just short-term variability that we're experiencing in the region.
The warming period after 2012 saw near bottom temperatures on the Scotian Shelf average 2 degrees above normal. The change was large and abrupt enough to be considered a regime shift in the ecosystem. The recent cooling is about half a degree below norms over the past 30 years. One explanation, cooler, oxygen-rich water is making its way south again.
In the past, it was that less Labrador Current water was coming around the tail of the Grand Banks, and the Gulf Stream water was moving onshore and producing warmer water. So it appeared last year that maybe it looked like the Labrador Current was returning to normal. So we're hoping that it's not being cut off at the tail of the Grand Banks like it has been in the past, and that, hopefully we'll get back to cooler temperatures, fresher water at depths.
The findings confirm what lobster fishermen in southwest Nova Scotia noticed this season. They saw landings drop as cooler temperatures at bottom, particularly farther from shore, immobilized lobster, making them harder to catch. Scientists say it will take several years before it's clear if the cooling water is part of a long-term trend. Paul Withers, CBC News, Halifax.
A petition to get Amazon to offer free shipping to all Nunavut communities now has more than 2,500 signatures. Krista Matthews lives in Cambridge Bay and started the petition. It comes after Canada Post closed a loophole that many communities were using to get their packages shipped for free.
Yeah, I've been thrilled with the response. It doesn't actually surprise me because I know how needed the Amazon Prime is up here.
Right now, only Iqaluit qualifies for free Prime shipping in Nunavut. A spokesperson for Amazon wouldn't say whether the company has plans to change that.
Hi, I'm Abel. I often forget to mention that he's an amputee because Abel will try any activity he can. My arm helps me with basically everything. He doesn't see what he can't do, he sees what he can do. Yeah, this is helping. The War Amps has just given him the ability to do all the activities every kid can do. When you donate to the War Amps, you help kids like me. Thank you!
Makimuksak palilaw da aula na po kugyang mulo amalo kokbiu yamo tinga liwaling mulo pangolo asyang miu muna toy mo ina daily takpa makimuksak palilaw mo mutay mabuat taling ni pilariyo lak mo inyo amichwalu walang muta.
When we see Team Canada on the world stage, we're witnessing pure greatness.
What we don't see is their struggle. We don't see Maggie McNeil navigating her anxiety, Shay Gilgis-Alexander getting cut from his high school team, or Ellie Black hearing she's just too old to compete. What we don't see makes us who we are. We're all bravely facing the odds in our lives, and our bravery is our victory.
Everyone listen up.
Bursting with flavor.
All these guys 21?
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Owning an NHL team.
Penguins had us review your offer, and it looks good.
Wow.
Get me on the phone with Cops Coliseum. Tell them I want to buy it.
Dehumanized, humiliated, and treated like a piece of luggage. That's how some travelers with disabilities describe their experiences flying with Canadian carriers. After a series of high-profile stories reported by CBC News, ministers held a summit with the airline industry and advocates to try and drive change. Ashley Burke has the story.
We feel that will make a huge difference.
Everyone here knows there's a problem. The aim of the summit, to come up with solutions.
We need you guys to change things.
Advocates meeting politicians and the airline industry, trying to make travel for people with disabilities less of an ordeal and more humane.
They smack your head into the overhead bins. I've had individuals, maybe not with enough strength to lift me, drop me on my back on the actual armrest. I've had my limbs twisted to the point of almost breaking, being caught under the aisle chair because my legs haven't been secured in properly. It's horrific.
This meeting comes after CBC News reports, including about Ryan LaChance. Cell phone footage captured him being dropped in a plane aisle. A Marketplace hidden camera investigation also shows airline workers struggling to get Alessia Di Virgilio onto a plane.
Please, guys, please.
This is what Mayan Ziv's wheelchair looked like after a flight. She says it's time for systemic change.
My experience is usually riddled with anxiety and a lot of barriers from the starting of my journey when I'm still at home, needing to declare my disability on an ongoing basis, needing to provide medical forms, needing to constantly feel like I have to be on guard because the authorities have just violated my trust.
We sincerely apologize, and we know that we've needed to do better.
The airlines say they've made changes and more are coming.
We believe that we are fully committed to this and that we want to invest in training and in equipment.
We're in trial runs right now for several new services that we're going to provide to folks, especially who are wheelchair users.
But people here want results.
Part of the whole conversation.
Federal ministers promised to simplify medical paperwork for those who need extra support traveling and do more to gather data and track their experiences.
If the government has to put something there as penalty, and others will, of course, consider everything there. But I do trust the companies and the airports.
Some advocates say that sounds like a start, but they say more needs to be done, including new penalties to ensure that their rights are upheld. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
A review of statistics by CBC News is raising questions about Canadian post-secondary business programs and the number of international students accepted into them. Those numbers appear strikingly at odds with the labour market demand. The CBC's Mike Crawley has the story.
There's a program for everyone at Seneca Business.
Promotional videos like this aim to recruit students to college business programs, and they're often pitched specifically at international students.
Teamwork is a cornerstone of our education. We work together on projects, just like in the real business world.
But for international students who take these courses, what's it like finding a job in that real business world? Akash Singh came from India and got a business diploma from an Ontario public college. His 2-year program cost $34,000.
I felt bad because I spent too much money on the course.
After graduating in 2021, Singh searched for work in finance and accounting, but has only been able to land jobs at McDonald's and as a security guard.
I was expecting a job in the field of what I've studied actually.
Canadian colleges and universities have recruited nearly 800,000 international students to business programs over the past 6 years, far more than any other field. New data obtained by CBC News shows how the number of permits issued to international students to study business grew dramatically at a far greater pace than such programs as IT, health sciences, or the trades.
Students are graduating from programs that are not particularly valuable in the labor market.
Rupa Banerjee's research focuses on the economic inclusion of immigrants.
Essentially, we're using the international student program as a source for cheap, exploitable, expendable, temporary labor. And that's not what the international student program is designed to be.
Colleges and universities have defended their intake of international students as a way of filling demand for skilled workers.
Those employability skills that the student learns can be applied to many sectors, and that's more the case with business than anything else.
But this expert believes there's another reason why colleges recruited so many international students to business programs.
It was a fountain of money, and so we just sort of said it's good.
Alex Usher has analyzed Canada's recruitment of international students over the years.
I don't think it had much to do with the labor market needs. I think what it had to do with was colleges' financial needs.
Now that Ottawa has drastically reduced the number of international students to be allowed into the country, business programs could be first on the chopping block.
There's a responsibility of provinces in this and the institutions that they have jurisdiction over, that they regulate, to make sure that the programs that they are offering to international students are the ones that fit the job market.
How to better match Canada's intake of foreign students with the need for skilled labor is on the immigration minister's mind. Mark Miller says he'll raise the issue when he meets his provincial and territorial counterparts tomorrow. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Some of the most popular TV shows and movies right now are all about the end of the world. In fact, apocalypse content is hotter than ever. Eli Glasner explains why.
I just want to start.
I've had a rough week.
On the small and the big screen.
You watch. As soon as DC falls, they'll turn on each other.
Audiences can't get enough of apocalyptic scenarios.
The collapse is so near.
Holy Moses.
On We're All Going to Die, Canadian Jay Baruchel confronts his anxiety, exploring everything from killer bugs to AI run amok.
I don't know if you're like a news junkie, but the past 4 or 5 years have been quite colorful and eventful.
They could bring about the end of life as we know it.
What? We need monsters, and we need to name them, and we always have.
I think we kind of like to swim in that dark space.
Right.
I think that humans naturally, we do like dark things.
Critic Rachel Ho isn't surprised by Civil War's success at the box office.
We're living in very divisive times, especially our friends down south. It's quite tense, I think is the best word for it probably. So it makes sense that our entertainment is reflecting that reality.
Think about your lives. I'm sure one of you is going to realize that it's not all that great.
This author says apocalyptic scenarios are on the rise for good reason.
It really is like resetting everything. You're getting rid of the baggage. You're able to start anew, or perhaps you're able to have this this ideal future that mirrors in some ways the things you wish would happen.
As for Jay Baruchel, after staring into the abyss, he's found something surprising.
It's made me more of an optimist. We are prone to less diseases. We are more literate. We kill each other less than we ever have, which is crazy considering what a garbage fire it is out there, right? So as shitty as it is, and anecdotally especially, it is very shitty. This is the best it's ever been.
A silver lining for our apocalyptic obsessions. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, an old adage says you can't predict the future, but some otters at the Vancouver Aquarium have proven that might not be true. They were given a choice, Vancouver Canucks or Edmonton Oilers. Their pick was as unanimous as a group of otters can get, and if last night's game is any indication, they may have picked the winner of the second round playoff series.
Heading straight for the Canucks. Oh my goodness, that was so fast. I've never seen anything so fast in my life. Joey is laying down on the ground, licking the Vancouver Canucks tray that is covered with clam bits. Okay, now this other one did go for the, okay, now we've got two other ones nibbling on the Oilers tray. All right. Oh, they flipped it over. They flipped it over. Well, now they can't even, now they're laying on the upside down Oilers tray, licking the Vancouver Canucks tray. So, I mean, this, this is outstanding.
This doesn't say how they feel, then nothing will.
Yeah.
It's as clear as communication from otters get.
This is
flip over the one we don't want, eat the one that we do.
They are very clearly stating their preference.
Well, that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, you can always visit our website, cbc.ca/north. On our site, you'll find a story about some heavy winds that are expected in the South Slave and Decho regions over the next few days, gusting upwards of 80 kilometers an hour at times. Something to keep your eye on. I'm Shannon Scott. We will see you at the same time tomorrow, 6:30 Eastern, 4:30 Mountain, and 3:30 Yukon time. See you then.
When we see Maggie McNeil, she's an Olympic gold medalist gliding through the pool. What we don't see is a person who refuses to let anxiety keep her from the starting block. When we see Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, the man's unstoppable. What we don't see is a skinny kid who got cut from his high school team. We don't see Maud Sharon being forced to change weight classes after she won Olympic gold. Ellie Black hearing she's just too old to compete as she prepares for her 4th Olympic Games. Or Andre DeGrasse dealing with all the doubters, including himself. What we don't see makes these athletes who they are. What we don't see makes us all who we are. We're all bravely facing the odds in our lives, and our bravery is our victory.
Look out! Ain't nobody gonna stop me. We have a new world record.
Oh my God. We're a team. We fight the best we can.
Unbelievable.
Who cries more, winners or losers?
Cry if you want to cry.
Can heartbreak help break records?
You want to be great? You need to sacrifice.
Do bigger fans have higher blood pressure?
How's your heart rate?
Why do we love rooting for underdogs?
Gotta support the home team.
What makes top dogs go the distance? How far will champions go to win?
I was just curious.
Does it matter if they have nothing to lose?
Is that a yes?
When you get curious, you get CBC.
Her particular skill set can be helpful to us.
She's a con artist. I need to get off that boat and back to being a full-time detective, and you need to stay out of prison. The best way we do that is to keep our heads down and do as we're told.